When the F4U Corsair first entered the skies of World War II, it was more than just an aircraft. It was a shockwave of power, speed, and destruction that no one, not even the most seasoned Axis pilots, was prepared for. Imagine for a moment being an Italian pilot in the early 1940s, accustomed to flying nimble but fragile fighters like the Mach-E C-202 or the Fiat G50. Fast, yes. Maneuverable, yes. But lightly armed and with armor so thin it was barely more than aluminum skin stretched over a frame. Now picture looking up and seeing this massive, gull-winged monster diving toward you at terrifying speed, its 6.50 caliber Browning machine gun spitting fire, the roar of its Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine shaking the very air around you. In that moment, your war isn't about strategy or nation or ideology. It's about survival. That was the fear the Corsair carried into every battle, and it's why Allied pilots nicknamed it Whistling Death. But how did this beast come to dominate skies where so many others struggled? To answer that, we need to rewind to its creation. The F4U wasn't born in a vacuum. American engineers knew they needed something more powerful, something that could carry the fight across oceans and into enemy territory. And they built it with urgency, as if time itself was the enemy. The result was a revolutionary design, a massive radial engine that made it the fastest fighter of its time, capable of speeds over 400 miles per hour, and an inverted gull wing that allowed it to carry a massive propeller without compromising landing gear. It was unlike anything else in the sky, and when it finally arrived in the European and Mediterranean theaters, it didn't just compete, it dominated. Here's where the emotional weight sets in. Imagine being on the other side. Italian pilots weren't cowards. They were skilled, brave men flying outdated machines. But courage alone cannot deflect bullets. When the Corsair swept into combat formations, the mismatch was brutal. Battles that once relied on tight turns and careful dogfights became one-sided massacres. Axis aircraft, designed for agility, crumpled under the weight of heavy firepower. The Corsair didn't dance, it hunted. And every time its guns lit up the sky, it delivered a psychological blow as devastating as the physical destruction. Some pilots even reported losing the will to fight after their first encounter with the Corsair, because what's the point of bravery when you're hopelessly outclassed? And here's where I'll pause with a humorous reset. It's almost like bringing a heavyweight boxer into a children's karate tournament. Sure, the kids know the moves, but one punch, and it's lights out. That's the kind of mismatch we're talking about here. But the Corsair wasn't just about brute force. Its design gave it versatility. It could dive like a hawk, tear through formations with devastating strafing runs, and still climb high enough to intercept bombers. It was the Swiss Army knife of warplanes, except instead of opening a bottle of wine, it was shredding enemy aircraft to pieces. And this is where the excitement built. With every mission, the Corsair wasn't just winning battles, it was rewriting the rules of aerial combat. Still, the deeper question lingers. Was this dominance inevitable? Or did the Allies stumble onto a perfect storm of timing, technology, and training? That's where the conflict in our story begins, because as powerful as the Corsair was, it wasn't invincible. It had weaknesses, limitations, and early failures that nearly kept it out of the war entirely. And unless those were solved, history might have been written very differently. Stick with me, because in the next part, we'll uncover those flaws, the daring pilots who risked everything to master this beast, and the shocking way the Corsair turned from a troubled project into one of the most feared and respected aircraft of World War II. And trust me, you'll want to hear how close we came to never seeing this monster in action at all. The story of the F4U Corsair could easily have ended in failure before it ever carved its legend in the skies. When the first prototypes rolled off the assembly line, American Navy test pilots weren't impressed. The plane was too fast for its own good. Landing on aircraft carriers was a nightmare. The long nose created a massive blind spot, the powerful engine made it twitchy at low speeds, and more than a few Corsairs smashed into carrier decks before anyone could figure out how to tame it. For a moment, it seemed like this beast would be grounded permanently, too dangerous to be entrusted to even the bravest naval aviators. But history has a funny way of turning near disasters into legends.
Instead of scrapping the Corsair, the Marines adopted it for land-based operations, and in their hands, the aircraft earned its fearsome reputation. Suddenly, this unflyable monster was rewriting the war, tearing through enemy aircraft at kill ratios no one thought possible. Think about the psychological whiplash for Axis pilots. One month, you're dueling relatively equal opponents, and the next, you're facing a machine that dives faster, climbs quicker, shoots harder, and refuses to go down even when riddled with bullets. Italian pilots, trained in the art of maneuverable dogfights, found themselves fighting an opponent that simply refused to play by the old rules. The Corsair didn't bother with elegant loops and spirals. It roared in like a thunderstorm, struck with overwhelming firepower, and was gone before anyone could react. Many Axis reports from the Mediterranean spoke less about tactical losses and more about shock, disbelief, even despair. The Corsair didn't just dominate the battlefield, it crushed morale. And yet, here's where the inspiration lies. The Corsair's journey wasn't just about technology, it was about the pilots who mastered it. Imagine strapping yourself into a machine that had killed more than a few of your comrades during training, knowing every landing was a gamble. Yet those pilots flew anyway, day after day, mission after mission, shaping a warplane once called too dangerous into a weapon that shifted the balance of air power. There's something deeply human in that. Fear, skill, and courage combining to create history. Now, let's reset with a quick moment of humor. Landing a Corsair on a carrier deck was compared to trying to park a truck on a postage stamp while blindfolded. And somehow, these pilots made it look routine. By the final years of the war, the Corsair had not only proven itself, but had become a symbol of American air dominance. Its 6.5 caliber machine guns shredded enemy fighters. Its rugged frame soaked up punishment that would have downed lesser planes, and its terrifying whistle became a sound Axis pilots learned to dread. To Italian squadrons, the appearance of Corsairs overhead wasn't just an obstacle. It was a nightmare that no amount of skill could overcome. That is the legacy of the F4U Corsair, a machine once doubted, later feared, and ultimately respected even by its enemies. But here's the cliffhanger. While the Corsair dominated Europe and the Mediterranean, its true legacy wasn't sealed until it entered the brutal skies of the Pacific, where it faced off against Japan's legendary Zero in battles that pushed both men and machines to their absolute limits. That's a story of endurance, innovation, and sacrifice, and one we'll explore in our next video. So if you found this journey into the forgotten story of the Corsair's dominance over Italian skies as thrilling as I did, don't stop here. Click on the next video where we'll uncover how this same aircraft became the nightmare of Japanese pilots and how its legend only grew stronger in the Pacific theater. Subscribe, share, and stay with us, because history is never just about the past. It's about the lessons, the courage, and the warnings it still carries for us today.